The fear of putting yourself out there is real. We feel called to speak, to play a role in life that requires us to step up and to step in to spaces where we are exposed to being judged, where we are very aware of the way we're seen by other people, and that can cause such resistance, procrastination, fear. So how do we get past that? Do we pretend it's not there? Do we just think happy thoughts and try to, push through it? When I started to get really amazing opportunities to speak and to serve and to coach and to just be in the world in my sort of early 30s, I had to face this. On a Sunday, I got a phone call while my kids were playing in the background from a television producer that wanted to make a documentary film feature about my life. I remember saying, yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. And as the yes came out of my mouth, so did that twisted knife feeling in my gut, and my heart contracted. And then what made it worse is I mentioned that I was going to do a talk in a month's time for a small audience of about 150 odd people. And they said, wonderful, we'll send television cameras to the talk to film the talk as part of the documentary. And I thanked them, put the phone down, and felt ill. I took myself upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and had to face this nauseous terror. Thoughts were shouting loud inside of me, negotiations, bargaining, crazy ideas like maybe I can convince the film crew to only film me on this side, right? So that I would look like this, because I was panicked that they'd film and pick up the scar or this scar if they were too close. I've got a scar from ear to ear from surgeries from when I was a kid, a 4-year-old. This was the 4-year-old scar. This was the 9-year-old scar. And even though my older adult mind was saying that's crazy, don't worry about it, just you'll be fine. There's this internal struggle. When you have an argument with yourself, who are you arguing with? We tend to claim one stream of thoughts as an identity and position it against another stream of thoughts. Really, are they not just parts of the self that we've pushed play on, like scrolling through a device and hitting shuffle, and you have thought streams rising from different bundles of contracted parts of ourselves, from different pockets inside of ourselves. And we just often don't think about it, and we just decide, okay, this is all me. But in moments like that, there's clearly thoughts that produce a contracted suffering, a feeling of heaviness, tightness somatically in the body. And fortunately, life has given me, sometimes out of desperation, I've found a way to build what I call my wisdom well, which is to simply realize that deeper than these busy, noisy, frightened, angry, embarrassed thoughts streams, like a well being dug in a desert, if we dig deeper than the surface mind, we find access to clear seeing that alleviates that brings the kind of clarity that turns a contracted state into a more open, clear-seeing state. Now, that doesn't mean it's always easy. I was tired of the self-consciousness, tired of this endless loop of saying something and then feeding it back to myself to wonder how people were seeing it, how they were interpreting it, how they were feeling, how they were seeing me. So I sat, and first to dig my wisdom well is to get raw and what I call get raw and real, which is being willing to put your hands in the dirt. As much as I've always tried to skip this part, go straight for the aha, clear seeing wisdom, it seems like to get to the water of our wisdom, we have to be willing to dig and willing to get our hands dirty. And what that looks like is just sharing. You make your inner world, where you close your eyes and where you draw your senses back. You make this a sanctuary. You make this a space where you can be honest, where you can share as if you're sharing with a really good friend. Because with experience, I've learned that this space, this true seeing, inner, true self that's deeper than the surface mind, this pure, open, aware space is so unconditionally there. The highest word, love, that you can share anything, and this depth of us doesn't shrink back. It's not punitive. And even if you hear other thoughts that are like finger pointing or judgmental, that's still not this deep seeing, because those thoughts create contraction. And any thought that produces a heavy contracted tightness or suffering does not speak on behalf of your true self. That's what I've come to realize. So when these mumblings arose that particular day, like, what if people laugh at me? Because my deepest fear from when I was a kid was people sniggering and pointing, because at the age of 4, I had a very large fibrous dysplasia tumor behind this eye that distorted the shape of this eye and raised this eyebrow significantly. And it was literally the size of an egg. It nearly killed me. It nearly blinded me. And the first surgery to remove it, I died twice. I was also gifted with a near-death experience that showed me what it's like to be free of this contraction, this heaviness. And my little young mind called it home. Didn't know what else to call it. And when I went back into life, I interpreted the word home as a place that you could go to and leave, and believed that thought and lost home, lost the openness, lost the freedom, became desperately homesick and very shy. And that's the baggage. Now I'm sitting in my early 30s with this opportunity, facing the panic of a tumor that's no longer there. But you don't need a tumor, right, to have these parts of ourselves that want to hide, want to mask, want to show people only some things and not other things, and how tiring and exhausting and painful that is. And I was sharing this with my deep wisdom, with like the soul of clear seeing being, and I was letting myself be a good friend to myself. And this fear of what if they laugh, what if they laugh? And I was imagining standing in front of these people, TV cameras, and them sniggering and pointing, like, who does she think she is? And she's got too many double chins, her eyes are skew, she doesn't know what she's saying. Everything, all those cruel, violent thoughts that we have towards ourselves. But it's important not to stop there and to go deeper and to not believe those thoughts, to honor them, but not to buy them, not to swallow them whole, to know that there is a deeper, clearer seeing, or to be willing to find that. And so what that looks like is setting an intention to send that bucket deeper. And it means slowing down, because I've noticed as well the surface mind is very busy, and it doesn't mean stopping thoughts. It doesn't mean trying to force your thoughts to go away. None of that works if you haven't noticed. It's simply to say, I'm switching attention. Yes, thanks, torturous, torture chamber mind, feelings, honoring that, and just something deeper, resting, calling the ambassador for attention home until there is a little shift of even the slightest bit more spaciousness. And with that shift, it's like the bucket has hit the water and we can ask, what is the deeper truth? How does wisdom see this? So I asked, how does wisdom see people laughing at me? How does wisdom see people judging me, people laughing at me, people pointing and sniggering? And then I feel for it, like feeling and listening to music and waiting to feel how the music lands in your body. It's a waiting, it's a being willing. And then truly the most honest response from this openness was laughing with. They're laughing at me, they're laughing at me, they're laughing at me. How does wisdom see this? There's more openness. Oh, but it's funny. It's okay that they laugh. There was this 360 degrees of one moment laughing at me was the most painful thing. Next is a clear seeing, clear being, open seeing, open being that just smiles and says it's okay that they find it funny. I think about the talk, I think about the TV cameras, and there's still fear. It's like a peeling of an onion. There's another layer and more layers of fear unpack. I'm afraid to speak and they use my words as weapons. My intention is to give something valuable and it gets twisted, it gets used, it gets abused, it gets turned into dogma. I'm afraid of the power of being a teacher, of being a coach, of being a leader, of being a guide. This was very surprising because I didn't think of myself as any of those things. I was just like shy Cole, trying to get by, trying to be a mom to my little kids. And here was this fear, the surprising fear, this fear of the power, the responsibility, and that landed hard. So I shared that with wisdom. What's the truth of this? How does wisdom see this? And then the simple words came through, this translation of the open, clear seeing. And it's what I would like to share with you today. And feel this with me. The words were simply, be yourself and love them. Be yourself and love them. I remember this now. It's like, wow, my young Cole, And in that seeing that my job was simple, to be myself and love them. Be yourself and love them. I need to try and impress people. I need to try. Trying is a clue. Trying is a clue that there's a polarity, there's a push-pull dynamic. Trying not to be something and trying to be something else is duality. It's the way our minds split things apart. It's the way our hearts mask, push one thing forward, pull another thing back. It's the way our guts resist. All of that just dissolved because I thought this felt true. Be myself and love them. There was a relaxing, and this relaxing and this openness, what I did is I sat with this and I let it saturate my cells. I invited it in and I said, this truth, this way of seeing, I claimed it. I was teaching the student inside of me, teaching my mind, teaching my heart, teaching my gut. Not just the words, because the words are never it. It's the seeing and the being. It's your true seeing and your true being that I call wisdom. It's giving that the opportunity to alchemize the contraction. Be yourself and love them. Now, it turned out that was harder than it sounded, right? Because being yourself means challenging all the masks. And I don't mean, the word authenticity is used a lot in the world, and I think there's authenticity from openness and there's authenticity that's its own kind of mask. authenticity, trying to be authentic, versus the resting authenticity, which is natural. It arises from wholeness. Be myself. And of course, figuring out that that's not a personality, that that's not a someone, that it is this openness expressed. And love them. Thing is, we can't love that which we're scared of, yeah? And I was scared of people. I was so scared of people that I was beating them to it, judging them before they could judge me, pushing them away before they could push me away, imagining their hostile thoughts before they ever could be voiced. Whereas loving means being prepared to tune in deeper than their surface, their personality, their noisy surface mind, heart, and gut. And then the water of wisdom recognizes water. Wisdom recognizes wisdom. True seeing recognizes true seeing. True being recognizes true being. And that gives us a way to connect to each other in a way that made it feel okay to be here on this little beautiful blue planet full of its intense challenges and suffering. So it was probably about an hour or two that I spent, those hours that I spent that day. Did a lot of crying, had the whole puffy eye thing afterwards, went back downstairs and was just tired, so rested. Weeks passed. The day of my talk arrived. It had so fundamentally changed inside of me that I was driving to the talk, reminding myself what the topic was. What is it I'm supposed to talk about again? Fishing in my handbag to find the program, glancing quickly at the topic, going, oh yes. Arrived at the venue. It was a kind of festival, lots of people. Found my way to the hall. Now, it's not to say there was not fear. Don't mistake me. My heart started beating. My mouth started getting drier. There was this normal physiological response. I could hear thoughts rising from that nervousness. But I kept staying close to this rested openness, trusting it. Went into the hall, stood on the stage, and then the TV cameras arrived and the crew. And of course, because there were TV cameras, everyone wanted to see what were the TV cameras coming to film, and the hall filled. A packed hall, giant TV camera, boom, the whole tutti. And when my thoughts panicked, what am I going to say? You haven't prepared anything to speak about. I would ask, what must I say? And I'd feel deeper. And they'd be, you don't know yet because you're not in front of them. It's like, how will you know what to say until you're in front of them? It was like this whole bungee jumping, crazy, brave, extreme sport version of trusting wisdom. Looked at them, remembered, be myself and love them. Set my intention to feel deeper than their personalities, deeper than the moving surface of them, for this underneath where we meet each other. And from that, the words began to flow. And for the first time in my life, humor showed up. The talk would just move from serious and clear to quirky humor. And at some point, it just felt so natural just to be quiet, and there was this pause. There was a hall full of strangers who a month before were the most terrifying things, eyeballs. And all I could feel was love, and everyone was still, and everyone was quiet. There was really no boundary. There was no them and me, no trying. There was just this. It was the most precious simple, ordinary seeing. And the talk finished on its own, just on time, without me looking at my watch. And as I walked out, this warmth, it's like, that's my job. That's what I love doing and being. And my beautifuls, I'm not to say that, stories are a double-edged sword. I tell my story, please don't let your surface mind compare, right? Because that's what the mind does, right? Oh, but Cole this and da-da-da, and am I supposed to do that? You don't know yet. If you be yourself and love and start letting more of this wisdom, this clear seeing and being, heal the mind and the heart and the gut, whatever wants to be sung into the world, whatever wants to express. An apple tree makes apples. Your apples, the fruits and the doing that is the expression of your being, that can be liberated. And all the resistance to putting yourself out there that may come up again and again and again, absolutely, and you just meet it with this love. You just meet it with this love.